Shadows of the Veil. In the distant world of Eldoria, where two suns chased each other across the sky, and kingdoms rose and fell like waves on a stormy sea, the land was divided by old fears and older lies. To the west stretched the mighty Gaulton Empire. It was a land of gleaming white towers that pierced the clouds and armies of steel-clad knights who marched to the beat of war drums. Red lion banners snapped in the wind from the jagged storm cliffs in the north to the endless blue of the whispering sea in the south. For 700 years, the queens of Gaulton had built their power, swallowing up smaller realms like a great river claims its tributaries. Gaulton called itself the light of the world, places where wise scholars pored over star charts in candlelit halls. Brave knights swore oaths to the seven virtues of honor and truth, and children grew up believing their empire was blessed by the gods themselves. But every light has a shadow, and Galton's biggest fear was the east. There lay Barma, a land whispered about in hushed tones around hearthfires. It was said to be a place of dark magic, where sorcerers drank the blood of the innocent, and shadows came alive to drag souls into the night. The air there twisted your thoughts, turning friends into foes and dreams into nightmares. Galton's children learned these tales from the cradle. Barma is the great eater, the nursemaids would say, their eyes wide and voices low. Its gates are made from the bones of dragons long dead. Ghostly watchers guard them, hungry for the hearts of the pure. Step inside and your blood runs black as ink. Your mind breaks like glass under a hammer. Tara, the only daughter of Queen Alara, had heard these stories 1,000 times. They were as much a part of her as her own heartbeat. At 16 summers, Tara was the jewel of Gaulton. Her hair was black as a raven's wing, woven with silver threads that caught the light like stars in a night sky. Her eyes were dark pools, sharp and curious, and her mind moved quicker than a falcon's dive. She trained with swords in the palace yards, debated philosophy with the scholars, and dreamed of the day she would sit upon her mother's throne in Stormhaven, the Empire's beating heart. But even in the comfort of silk gowns and golden goblets, Tara felt an itch she couldn't scratch. The stories of Barma didn't sit right. Why did the knights return from border patrols with empty hands and wild eyes? Why did the maps in the royal libraries end in scribbled warnings and faded ink? It all changed on a foggy morning when the two suns were hidden behind a veil of mist. Tara, restless after a night of fitful dreams, slipped away from her guards and into the royal archives. This was a place deep beneath the palace, a maze of stone rooms lit by flickering torches. The air smelled of old leather and forgotten ink. Books lined the walls, chained to the shelves like dangerous beasts. Signs warned of Eastern taint, and only the queen's most trusted advisors were allowed near the deeper vaults. Tara's heart pounded as she pushed open a heavy oak door, her candle casting long shadows that danced like playful spirits. She wandered the aisles, her fingers trailing over dusty spines. Most books sang praises of Galton's victories, tales of queens who tamed wild lands and knights who slew shadow beasts. But in a forgotten corner, half buried under a pile of crumbling scrolls, she found it. The veil unraveled. The cover was plain leather, unmarked by chains or seals. Inside, the handwriting was neat but faded, the words of a scholar long turned to dust named Thorn Blackthorn. He wrote not of Barma's terrors, but of its hidden beauties. Temples of crystal that hummed like living songs in the wind. Healers who wove light from the stars to mend broken bones and weary hearts. A people who honored the old gods with joyful dances under the moon, not with blood and chains. Tara's breath caught. "This can't be," she whispered to the empty air. She read on, page after page, until her candle burned low. Blackthorn claimed the stories were tools, sharp knives in the hands of queens to keep the people afraid and loyal. A common enemy meant higher taxes for border walls, young men rushing to join the army for glory, and whispers of unity in the face of the dark. Tara thought of the court, her mother's advisors, fat on bribes from spice traders, the knights who boasted of battles that never happened, the songs sung in taverns about heroes who slew eastern witches, when the truth was often just raids on poor villages. What if Barma wasn't a monster but a mirror, a reflection of Galton's own fears? That evening, as the twin sun dipped low and painted the throne room in shades of orange and purple, Tara confronted her mother. Queen Alara sat upon the lion throne, a massive seat carved from white marble and inlaid with gold. She wore a gown embroidered with roaring lions, and her crown gleamed like captured fire. Servants hovered with trays of wine and fruit, but the room felt heavy, like the air before a storm. "Mother," Tara said, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach, "the stories of Barma, are they all we say? The archives speak differently." Alara's goblet paused halfway to her lips. Her eyes, so like Tara's but hardened by years of rule, narrowed. "What archives, child? You know those depths are forbidden." Tara swallowed. "A book by Thorn Blackthorn. He says Barma is no devourer, that it's a land of light, like ours, but hidden." The queen set her goblet down with a sharp clink. The servants froze. "Blackthorn was a fool, branded a traitor for his poison words. Barma is real. I felt its chill in the border wars of my youth. Armies born of night, sorcery that withered our finest nights like autumn leaves. Doubt such things, and you doubt Gaulton itself. You are my heir. Our light must burn without flicker." Tara bowed her head, but the words burned inside her like embers. That night she lay awake in her chamber, listening to the distant crash of waves against the storm cliffs. The palace felt like a cage, its walls closing in. She thought of the Empire's reach, the frozen north, where Ironmore's wolf clans bent the knee for protection. The scorching sands of Sarath, where Scorpion kings sent tribute caravans laden with silk and spices. The misty isles of Vaylun, where sea folk traded pearls for Gaulton's steel blades. All united by the shadow of Barma. But if the shadow was a lie, what then? Tara rose before dawn, packed a simple satchel with bread, a water skin, her mother's old dagger, and Blackthorn's book. She donned a gray wool cloak, the mark of a wandering healer, and slipped out a side gate into the pre-dawn fog. "I will find the truth," she whispered to the empty streets, "or die trying." Her path led east toward the Obsidian Vale, the fabled gate where Gaulton's light met Barma's endless night. It was a journey no noble daughter had ever taken, and the road ahead was as unforgiving as the queens who ruled from afar. The first leg took her through the whispering marshes of Vaylun, a labyrinth of fog-shrouded islands connected by rickety bridges of woven reeds. The air was thick with salt and the cries of unseen birds, and the ground sucked at her boots like greedy hands. Tara bartered passage on a flat-bottomed skiff with old Cale, a weathered fisherman whose face was etched with lines like cracks in driftwood. His eyes held a wild glint, touched by the merfolk who lurked in the depths. "East, eh?" Through the veil, Cale rasped, poling his boat through channels where the water ran black as ink. "Only fools and ghosts go that way, girl. The Merkin sing songs of drowned kingdoms, House Marrow they called it. Swore oaths to Gaulton once, shared their sea magic for safe harbors. But the queens grew greedy, demanded more. So the fleet came at high tide, and the isles ran red. Now the fog hides their bones." Tara gripped the side of the boat as a sudden squall whipped up, rain lashing like needles. Visions flickered in the spray, skeletal hands rising from the waves, crowned with coral and weeping blood. She pressed Blackthorn's book to her chest, its pages damp but unyielding. To earn her keep, she tended Cale's festering wound from a mere-barbed hook, using herbs from her satchel to draw out the poison. His grunts turned to thanks, and by the third dawn, he shared a flask of fermented kelp wine. "You're no common wanderer," he said, squinting. "Gaulton blood in your veins?" She lied with a smile. "Just a healer seeking lost cures." In truth, the marshes tested her resolve. One night, stranded on a mudflat by low tide, she faced a pack of marsh wraiths, glowing eyes in the fog, whispers promising forgotten homes. Tara's dagger flashed, and she sang a Gaulton ward song her nursemaid had taught her. The wraiths recoiled, but not before one clawed her arm, leaving a burning gash. Cale rowed her to Vaylun's main isle at last, a cluster of thatched huts built on stilts. There, in a healer's den reeking of seaweed poultices, Tara traded her silver hairpin for a vial of mere tears, a glowing liquid that sealed her wound overnight. The East calls the brave, the Islewoman said, her voice like bubbling water. But beware, the veil mirrors your soul. What you fear, it shows. From Valoon's shores, Tara struck inland, across the sun-bleached dunes of Sarath, a vast sea of golden sand where the heat baked the world into a shimmering haze. Camels groaned under loads of spice sacks, and scorpion kings ruled from tent cities that vanished like mirages by noon. Loyalty here was as fleeting as a desert wind. Tara joined a caravan led by Zara the Venomous, a sharp-eyed woman in flowing veils, her fingers ringed with poison vials and her tongue quicker than her hidden daggers. Zara's group hauled saffron and myrrh to Gaulton's markets, but whispers of eastern trade slipped through the dunes. The Queen's gold keeps our mouths shut, Zara confided one night, as they huddled around a fire of dried camel dung, the stars above like scattered jewels. But Barma's caravans bring wonders, silks that heal wounds, lamps that light without flame. We've seen their traders at oasis meets, faces calm as still water. No horns, no fangs, just men and women like us. The dunes were not kind. By day, the sun scorched Tara's skin until it blistered, forcing her to wrap her face in scavenged scarves. Nights brought chill winds that carried the howls of sandrace, echoes of lost travelers, or so the tales went. The real danger came under a blood-red moon, when bandits from Ironmore's exiled clans struck like vipers. They rode shaggy dune beasts, axes gleaming, demanding the caravan's wealth in the name of forgotten debts to the north. Chaos erupted. Screams, the clash of steel, the acrid smoke of burning spice. Tara, no stranger to the yard's mock battles, snatched a fallen scimitar and fought for her life. Her blades sang through the air, felling a hulking raider who towered over her. Blood, hot and sticky, splashed her cloak, but she stood, chest heaving, as Zara's guards routed the rest. In the firelit aftermath, with the wounded moaning and the dead wrapped in spice sacks for shallow graves, Zara pressed a carved wooden map into Tara's hands. It was etched with hidden routes, marked by scorpion trails and secret wells. "You fight like a lion's kin," Zara said, her kohl-rimmed eyes appraising. "The veil isn't a gate of bone, girl. It's a mirror of the heart. Gaulton's queens built it to reflect their greed. Make us see monsters where there are none." Tara traveled with the caravan for 2 full moons, learning the desert's rhythms, how to read the wind's whisper for storms, how to brew scorpion venom into a sleep draft, how to haggle with mirage traders who sold dreams in vials. But Sarath's heart was fickle. A sandstorm separated her from the group, leaving her alone with a stolen camel and a growing certainty that the Empire's light was built on shifting sands. Tara turned 20 in the frozen wilds of Ironmore, the North's iron-hearted kingdom where snow fell like ash, and wolf clans howled allegiance to no one but their own. The air bit like fangs and the ground crunched underfoot with eternal frost. She sought shelter with Clan Frostfang, a rugged band led by chieftain Bjorn One-Eye, whose missing orb was a trophy from a Gaulton raid gone wrong. Tara arrived half-frozen, her camel dead from the cold, and earned her place by the fire by stitching the lore keeper Grimnir's gashed leg after a skirmish with rival wolves. Grimnir was ancient, his beard white as fresh snow, his voice a rumble like distant thunder. Over mugs of hot mead spiced with northern herbs, he shared the clan's oral tales, songs of ice gods and star wolves, but woven in were darker threads. "Gaulton calls us barbarians," Grimnir growled one storm-lashed night as wind rattled the longhouse's hides. "But we remember the true north. Long ago, before the Queen's walls, Barma was our brother, mystic kin from the east, trading furs for their light weavings that warmed the soul. We fought side by side against the shadow beasts from the Thornwood. Then came Valyria the First, Tara's bloodkin, with her honeyed words and iron ships. She promised alliance but took our lands for her light, sundered the veil to make us enemies, so her people would kneel instead of question." The clan nodded, eyes gleaming in the firelight. Tara listened, her scar from Valoon throbbing like a second heartbeat. Ironmore's tests were brutal. A border patrol of Gaulton knights swept through like a white squall, demanding tribute in furs and oaths. "The dark rises," their captain bellowed, crimson cloak billowing. "Ironmore must pay for the king's grace." Tara, disguised in wolf pelt and ash-smeared face, stood among the Frostfang warriors. When steel met steel in the snow-choked pass, she parried a knight's blow, her dagger finding the gap in his armor. The fight was short and bloody, Frostfang axes cleaving through plate, but it left her with a puckered scar across her ribs, a jagged reminder that empires devoured even their allies. Bjorn clapped her shoulder after, his grip like a vice. "You fight with a lion's fire, Southling." But the North remembers. Barma's veil hides kin, not killers. Tara wintered with the clan, learning their ways, how to track wolves through blizzards, how to carve runes that warded off frostwites, how to sing the dirges of fallen heroes. A young warrior named Eric caught her eye, broad-shouldered, with hair like spun gold, and a laugh that warmed the coldest hall. They shared stolen moments by the fire, his hands rough on hers as he taught her the wolf song. "Come with me to the vale," he urged one night, breath fogging the air. "We'll pierce it together, find the truth your queen's buried." But fate was cruel. Eric fell to a Frostfang rival's blade in a clan feud, his blood staining the snow red. Tara buried him under a cairn of stones, her tears freezing on her cheeks. "The road takes all," she whispered, and pressed on alone, her heart heavier but her resolve like iron. By her 23rd year, Tara was a wanderer forged in fire and frost. Her skin was toughened by sun and scar, her tongue fluent in the clipped barks of Ironmore, the lilting songs of Veilun, and the hissing trade tongues of Sareth. Her satchel bulged with treasures, a humming pearl from the isles that whispered sea lullabies in the dark, a scorpion amulet from the dunes that burned away fever dreams, a wolf pelt cloak from the north, soft as a lover's touch. Allies had come and gone, a Sareth thief named Joran, who stole her heart and half her coin before vanishing into a sandstorm with a wink and a promise. A Veilun seeress called Mira, whose visions of veils upon veils ended in her drowning during a prophetic trance, her last words a warning: "The mirror shows not what is, but what you fear to be." Betrayals cut deepest. A Frostfang scout who sold her location to Gaulton bounty hunters for a pouch of southern silver, forcing her to flee through a blizzard with arrows whistling at her heels. She escaped with the hunter's own knife, buried to the hilt in his thigh. But the chase left her wary of trust. The east grew wilder, its hills sharpening to teeth-like peaks, shrouded in perpetual storm clouds. Tales from wayfarers turned feverish. Travelers swallowed whole at the veil, their screams echoing like the wails of lost children. Tara pushed through the Thornwood last, a tangled forest on no map, claimed by neither kingdom nor god. Trees twisted like tormented souls, their branches thorns that drew blood with every step. Shadowcats prowled the undergrowth, their eyes glowing like banked coals, and the air hummed with the murmurs of elder spirits, forgotten oaths from wars long past. Here Tara faced her deepest trial. In a moonlit clearing, a spectral hound materialized from the mist, its form translucent as smoke, eyes molten gold that pierced her soul. It lunged, jaws wide, and Tara's dagger met its throat. The blade passed through fog, but the beast howled, dissolving into wisps that left behind a runestone, pulsing with faint inner light. As she clutched it, the trees sighed in unison. Barma's echo. Kin calls to kin. 4 long years from Stormhaven's gates, Tara crested the final ridge, her boots crumbling scree into the void below. There it stood, the Obsidian Vale, a colossal arch of black stone, veined with crimson streaks like lightning frozen in time. Yawning chasms flanked its base, winds rising from their depths in eternal, mournful dirges that tugged at her cloak like pleading fingers. Iron spikes crowned the arch, each impaled with the rusted helms and shattered shields of eastern invaders. Gaulton's grim trophies, or so the ballads claimed. The gate was the stuff of nightmares. Pass beneath, and Barma's curse would claim you, twisting flesh and mind into abominations. No Westerner who crossed returned to tell the tale. Tara's pulse thundered in her ears, her old scars aching in the biting chill. This was the end of her road, the pulsing heart of the darkness, the Empire's grand deception laid bare before her weary eyes. She descended the slope on foot, the wolf pelt dragging furrows in the dust. No guards patrolled the approaches, only silence reigned, broken by the wind's low keen. The arch loomed taller with every step, its stone unnaturally warm against the mountain cold, humming with a deep vibration that resonated in her bones like a distant drum. Ancient runes scarred its flanks, symbols half remembered from Blackthorn's faded pages, glowing faintly as her shadow fell across them. Tara reached out, her calloused fingers tracing their curves. A tingle shot up her arm, like starlight on skin. The runes seemed to shift, forming words in her mind. Enter, and behold! Her breath came shallow, memories flashing like lightning. Alara's stern gaze, Joran's fleeting kiss, Eric's frozen grave. For truth, she murmured and stepped forward. The world did not end in fire or shadow. No wraiths erupted from the stone. No curse rained down in blood or madness. The arch's shadow swallowed her whole, then spat her out into blinding light. The chasm path sloped gently downward, the howling winds fading to a soft breeze scented with jasmine and rain. Before her unfolded a verdant valley cradled in the mountain's embrace, rivers of crystal-clear water meandering through groves of silver-barked trees, their leaves shimmering with dew that caught the twin suns like prisms. White marble temples dotted the landscape, their domes open to the sky and chiming with wind bells that wove melodies of flutes and harps. Laughter echoed from clusters of children chasing luminous orbs that bobbed like joyful fireflies. Robed figures moved with quiet grace, their skin the warm brown of sun-kissed earth, eyes sparkling with a wisdom that needed no crowns. Healers knelt by a bubbling stream, their palms glowing soft blue as they coaxed wilted flowers back to bloom, petals unfurling in silent applause. Tara stumbled forward, her legs buckling as the weight of years crashed down. This was Barma? Not a pit of horrors, but a paradise of peace. A realm where the old gods were celebrated with dances and offerings of fruit, not dread and sacrifice. The air tasted sweet, free of the metallic bite of fear. She approached a group of elders seated by a marble fountain, its waters carving intricate patterns in the stone. Her voice emerged as a croak, rough from disuse. I am Tara, daughter of Gaulton. I come seeking the truth of Barma. The stories, they can't all be lies. The eldest among them, a woman with hair like flowing silver threads and a face creased with kindly lines, rose slowly. Her robe was simple linen, dyed in earth tones, embroidered with runes that matched the arches. She tilted her head, studying Tara with eyes like deep wells. A gentle smile bloomed, warm as autumn leaves under sun. Gaulton, you say? Poor wanderer, weary from the road's long bite. Come, sit, drink. She offered a clay cup filled with cool, herb-scented water that soothed Tara's parched throat like a mother's touch. The other elders murmured welcomes, their voices a harmonious chorus. When Tara repeated her plea, the elder, Lyra, high priestess of the Vale, led her to a shaded alcove in the nearest temple. Sunlight filtered through lattice screens, casting patterns like woven stars on the floor. Lyra unrolled a vast tapestry of silk and embroidered thread, its edges frayed from centuries of careful handling. The scenes depicted a history Tara had never known. The ancient unity of Brahma, a single land where West met East in harmony. Mystic healers from the valleys traded with wolf clans of the north. Sea folk from the isles sang with scorpion kings of the sands. But at the tapestry's heart loomed Queen Valeria I, Tara's direct ancestress, her face fierce and beautiful, wielding a blade forged from a shattered prophecy stone. Valeria feared the old ways, Lyra explained, her voice soft as falling petals, tracing the threads with gnarled fingers. The mystic's power, the light weavings, the god dances, threatened her iron rule. Whispers of equality stirred the people, from Stormhaven's halls to Serath's dunes. So she sundered the land with that blade, cleaving Brahma in twain. The west became Gaulton, the light of conquest and control. The east, she named it Barma, a shadow born of her own making, a ghost to haunt her throne, to bind the realms with fear. The obsidian veil was her cruel jest, a border to fool the eye, its guards her own vanished patrols, sacrificed to feed the myth. Westerners who cross, they find home not horror, but few seek it, for the queen's tales run deep as roots. Tara's vision blurred with hot tears, carving clean paths through the grime of her cheeks. 4 years of blood and bone-weary marches, of betrayals that scarred deeper than steel, of nights haunted by the ghosts of lost loves, all for this revelation. Not defeat, but a shattering truth. Gaulton was Brahma, the empire and the mystic heart entwined, severed by a queen's ambition. The enemy was family, the dark, a forgotten dawn. Rage warred with sorrow in her chest. Rage at Alara, at the courts that profited from division. Sorrow for the lives twisted by the lie, from Ironmore's frozen orphans to Sarath's buried caravans. She could return to Stormhaven now, storm the throne with this tapestry as her banner, shatter the myth and watch the empire crumble or remake itself. Or she could stay, learn the songs of unity, become the bridge that mended what was broken. As the twin suns kissed the valley's rim, bathing the temples in golden rose, Lyra placed a hand on Tara's shoulder. The choice is yours, Bridgeborn. But know this, the veil thins not by blade or decree, but by hearts that dare to see. Tara looked out over the land that was both foreign and familiar, the runestone from the thornwood warm in her palm. Teach me your songs, Lyra, she said at last, her voice steady as the arches hum. And your stories. I will carry them west, not as a conqueror, but as kin. The Queen's Game of Thrones ends here. Brahma wakes. In the valley that had always been home, the first notes of an old melody rose on the wind, a song of sundered sisters, now calling each other back. Eldoria's fractured crowns would soon feel the tremor, for a daughter's quiet fire had kindled a dawn that no veil could dim. And across the kingdoms, from Vaelun's waves to Ironmore's snows, whispers began to stir. The shadow was light, the enemy a mirror, and the bridge had crossed at last.